pictorial pages.
Well, let's have a look at your vision for the future. Cover of your book, Fully Automated Luxury Communism.
Yeah.
Well, that is a title, I have to say, Aaron Bastani. But you are sort of accepting AI and robots taking over hundreds of thousands of jobs, but it's OK.
Yeah, I mean, the book is really composed of three parts. The start is really what we've already been talking about, really, crises. I won't reiterate what I talked about just a moment ago. And then I say, but at the same time, over the last several decades, we see the emergence of a range of technologies, renewable energy, synthetic biology, cellular agriculture, automation, AI, etc. And this can actually create a new found abundance, which should be subordinated to universal basic services, freely available to everyone, rather than just compounding profits of the already powerful. Now, what Toby will say, if you'll allow me to ventriloquise you, he'll say, well, this is only possible because of capitalism. And in part, he's right. My point is that increasingly this abundance will find itself at odds with the core tenets of capitalism, which is workers have to sell their labour for a wage. Well, algorithmic learning, AI could undermine that. And production for profit, where you have things which are getting permanently cheaper, permanent deflation. It's very hard to sell things for a profit on a market through prices.
I think I don't think you quite captured my there, Aaron. My objection is with the word communism. If you look at various attempts
luxury or otherwise,
to replace capitalism with something better, fairer, more socially just in the 20th century, well, actually, it resulted in the deaths of over 100 million people. Jeremy Corbyn on the Marr Show last year praised Chairman Mao's Great Leap Forward, which was the forced collectivisation of agriculture between 58 and 62. That resulted in an estimated 45 million deaths.
Yeah, well,
it's never worked before. Why is it going to work again, just if we add a bit of high tech?
Well, the thing is, like I say, the book starts with these crises, and I find it instructive that people on the right are more willing to talk about the shortcomings of the Russian Revolution, the Russian Civil War, 1917 to 21, rather than
talk about Venezuela.
Well, OK, we can talk about Venezuela. It's certainly not communism. Rather than declining crop yields because of climate change, rather than glacier water basically disappearing in South Asia, meaning several billion people can't get clean drinking water, rather than a crisis of ageing, which means that taxpayer-funded social welfare systems will no longer function, rather than a panoply of crises, which we're seeing on the horizon, automation changing the developmental trajectory. So 10 years ago, we would have thought all the jobs in China today, if the labour costs are too high, they'll go to Nigeria. What we're seeing instead, because of automation, the jobs stay there, it's just robots do them. So for Nigeria, Indonesia, Pakistan, that's hugely troubling. And Toby's talking about 1917.
I think, Aaron, there's no question that there are problems facing us, problems we have to address. But I think the people to rely on, the system to rely on to address those problems is the free market, free enterprise system, which has raised so many people out of poverty, not communism, which plunges people into poverty, which resulted, as I say, in over 100 million unnecessary deaths during the 20th century, and is continuing to kill people to this day in Venezuela.
So I think there are different iterations of capitalism, and the free market neoliberal system that we've had for the last 40 years, I think there's a question about whether it's hit the limits and the bounds of what it can do. And the logic, the beauty of that free market model, the promise of that free market model was this idea of trickle down. Just let the markets do what they like and they will distribute fairly. Everyone will do better. That is no longer the case. And at some point, you have to confront the fact that this system just isn't working. And if it's not working for people, it won't withstand it. So people like you can say all you like, this is the right system. If the public don't believe it, the political pressure for change will be immense. And I think that's the debate. And when you throw in the disruption that will come from automation, you throw in the disruption that will come from climate change, this will create the conditions for us thinking about a very different system. That should be the conversation.
But Beata, in 1 year alone, 2013, 100 million people were raised out of extreme poverty. Why? Because of the global spread of free market capitalism to India, to Africa, to Asia. Isn't that an example of everyone benefiting from the free enterprise system? Over 100 million people in a single year being raised out of extreme poverty.
So
what's that? It's not a benefit.
I would argue that when you dig under that, then actually it's about policy intervention. So very often the thing that's raised people are governments intervening to educate people, intervening to look after people. So if you let the free market roll on its own, it won't do the job. And there's always this balance, and the question is whether we have gone too far in one direction or another.
I'm afraid socialism always begins with a universal vision for the brotherhood of man and ends with people having to eat their own pets.
Right. Charming. Right, let's...